We've had quite the selection of body horrors in the last couple of years, with options like The Substance, Infinity Pool, and The Ugly Stepsister. And although I am late to the party, the Alison, Brie, and Dave Franco horror together follows in these footsteps. But is it worth checking out? Years into their relationship, Tim and Millie find themselves at a crossroads as they move to the country. With tensions already flaring, an encounter with an unnatural force threatens to corrupt their lives, their love, and their flesh. So there was some controversy over the story for this. I'm not going to get into that. Instead, I want to focus on the relational horror that takes place within this taut and freaky horror. And because they're real-life partners, Franco and Brie use their natural chemistry to present a relationship that feels natural. Despite having some of this dysfunction. They decide to move to a small community where Brie's Millie is going to teach, meaning that Franco's Tim has to leave the comforts and familiarity of the city behind, if he wants to keep their relationship. And at the core of this story, it's all about love, devotion, belonging, and attraction, which are elements the couple sometimes struggles with. Now, I was instantly enamored with both Franco and Brie. Not that I liked Tim very much. He comes across as selfish and wavering, uncertain about the relationship's future, and even whether he's willing to compromise on his wants for the sake of them both. He's got some past family trauma, which is creepily displayed, giving us a slight insight into his experiences that explain why he's a bit messed up and emotionally distant. Franco's performance is painful to watch at times. Not because he's enduring some sort of torture or harm, even though that does happen. He showcases his fear and anxiety in a way that creates sympathy for his internal struggles. We watch the outward deterioration of the character thanks to the inner turmoil that he's experiencing. And Franco looks as though he's gone through the ringer several times. Millie, she can come across as pushy and forceful within the relationship dynamic, but it's almost a necessity thanks to a lot of the hesitancy on Tim's part. Now, she's the stronger of the couple, both emotionally and in maturity. There are some times, though, when Millie feels controlling or overbearing, but in actuality, she's fighting for the relationship, showing this stark contrast to Tim's emotional absence. And Brie creates a warmth and longing to the character and then the relationship as a whole, making some of her decisions and actions all the more visceral once they happen further down the line. Now, the dialogue the pair shares, it is direct and harsh, sometimes so pointed that it cuts to the core of the other, designed to harm in the moment, even though there is going to be some remorse later. And I appreciate the relatability that's created within this relationship. While we get to witness joy and happiness, there's also the pain that accompanies any deep connection. And while the writing doesn't belabor areas within their relationship, especially through the dialogue, the concepts are clearly accentuated and poignant, hitting their mark to elicit an emotional reaction from us as the audience that can either endear us to a character or turn us off of them. Damon Harriman also stars in this as a fellow teacher and neighbor to the couple. Now, he's quirky and mysterious, but wrapped in a quiet and understanding nature that keeps him sympathetic as a character and also empathetic as a friend to the couple. And I love the reserved approach that Harriman uses to craft his persona. Jamie is inviting, charming, protective, understanding, while then also having this slightly vague edge. The character isn't overly complex, but he isn't simple either. The mix creates this aura that contains some unease as well as warmth. And while the themes of the story focus on relationships, the visuals and the actions, they are ghastly and horrifying. The couple goes hiking and they find themselves in this cave, taking shelter from a storm. And after being in that area, they find that they have an undeniable attraction to each other. One that has a new way of informing their actions and behaviors, showcasing then some backcrap crazy sequences while underscoring dependence that could border on unhealthy. Now, special effects utilized in this movie, they're off the rails. There are moments we get to watch the couple in the midst of their attraction. The visuals are gnarly and visceral. One scene in particular made me cringe and wince before it even happened because we're already made aware of the context for what's going to happen. And then we can predict what's coming. Story doesn't disappoint. I squirmed a lot. Not just during this particular scene either. So many of the instances are executed in a way that makes them incredibly uncomfortable and terrifyingly physical. The editing also complements the visual storytelling so that simultaneous scenes work together to create this immersive experience that sucks us into a character's perspective. This also continued to reinforce the themes of dependence and connection without stopping down the story to deliver some exposition. That being said, though, there is a small moment that does utilize some brief exposition to explain some motives. But this is quick, and it's still augmented by horrifying imagery, keeping the scene from becoming static or dull, and instead adding to the sense of urgency that had preceded the sequence. Now for me, I would have loved to have received more background on the lore that's used at the heart of the story. We are given enough so that the plot makes sense, and it isn't something that comes at us out of left field. I was just vibing with the mystique, and I wanted to know more, even though it may not have improved the overall drama. I wasn't sure going into this because I didn't want it to be jumping on the body horror bandwagon. The lore, it's simply explained. Maybe skimping on meaningful background, but what a surprise this was. From the emotionally resonant performances to the grotesque visualizations, together weaves a powerful story of romance, connection, and the interconnectedness of souls with a relevant examination of how one can lose themselves in a relationship or actively pursue becoming one with a soulmate. There's sex, nudity, a ton of profanity, and some gnarly violence. I give Together 4.5 out of 5 couches. So do you have a favorite body horror? I would love to know what tops your list in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.